right, Nick, let's talk about it. Does last night's loss show you that maybe the trade rumors are starting to affect the Lakers, especially what you saw on the court?
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to read into it. And LeBron's right. LeBron has no idea what this is like. LeBron's never been the subject of trade rumors. The only trade that ever we found out after the fact he was rumored in was the Lakers years ago offering Kobe for a very young LeBron after Shaq left the Lakers and the Cavs dismissed it. Since then, he's had no trade clauses in his contracts. He doesn't know what it's like to be on the trading block. But I would ask the audience to remember 1 year ago this week, because it's very instructive. There were trade rumors swirling around the entire Cleveland Cavaliers team. And what did they do that week? On February 3rd of 2018, they lost to the Rockets at home by 32 points. LeBron had 11 points in that game. The very next game they played Orlando, a bad Magic team. They were up 16 at the half. They lost the second half by 34 points en route to getting blown out. Those guys that knew they might be traded, knew they could be on their way out, stopped committing defensively, as is understandable. You want me to sacrifice for who? For what? For a team that's going to be my ex-team? And the team was falling apart. The Cavs found out the day before the trade deadline, 1 year ago today, that the trades were happening. That's the game LeBron had the block on one end, the game winner on the other against the Timberwolves. The next day, they remade the Cavs, went on the run they went on. But this is not shocking that they played this poorly. What it did, though, was it made making some type of move, and I'm talking Svi Mikhailiuk for Reggie Bullock, which happened in the middle of the night, some major move, all the more of a necessity for the Lakers, because these guys, while they might play better once the trade deadline is passed, I think some of them might be lost emotionally for the season.
Yeah, it's impossible to think that this young group of players, it wouldn't affect them. Now, Lonzo Ball not being in the lineup and other injuries, yeah, they're shorthanded also, but the overall pressure. Just imagine just your family, just your close family. Forget about people just in the basketball world. All the communication you have to try to get them to not talk about it, because it's a reality. It's been a reality since LeBron has been there. He was only going to play with this group of young players for 1 year. It was a matter of, are they going to be able to keep one of them? Which one of them is going to develop? Who's going to be the better asset amongst the three of them? And I could throw Josh Hart in there after the great summer he had last year, because people like his overall ability. But when you just think about trying to do your job and be professional, it's hard when you don't know what your home's going to be. Now, how do you focus? How you're able to do that? Man, it was obviously last night they were not in the type of mentality that you want to have in the basketball.
They weren't in sync as a team.
No, absolutely not.
And LeBron, listen, this is part of the deal with LeBron. Is he's not exactly going to be the life coach for these guys during this process. And in fact, he might detach himself a bit during this process. We saw that in the fourth quarter when he was sitting on the end of the bench, as he always did, and then all of a sudden those empty seats weren't filling up. Like, LeBron is not going to be the best guy to get guys through this, because he doesn't view that as his job.
A lot of times at training camp, being in the NFL, there's a lot of guys that potentially I might be mentoring or building relationships through the offseason. When you start getting to that second week in August, you start realizing, I'm going to have to start pulling myself away. I'm going to have to start more gravitating to the guys I know are going to be here, and we're going to go on this journey to try to win together. And as much as you like to help people and have it grow, ultimately you have to try to start thinking about and taking care of yourself. And LeBron James, he can only do so much. And I like the fact that he admitted this is foreign to him. And there's only certain things that LeBron could be able to help these young guys with, and last night was not a good showing for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Look, between the injuries they've had, the rotations they've changed, the chemistry problems, the trade rumors, is just getting Anthony Davis going to be enough to salvage this season at this point? And we're not even sure if that's going to happen.
Well, I think it's the only thing that could salvage the season. And this is the Lakers yesterday tried to draw a line in the sand, right? They said, you know what? We're not negotiating anymore. We're sick of negotiating with the Pelicans. Sick of negotiating against ourselves. We've offered you. They offered the trade offer I presented a week ago, which a lot of people thought was way too much, plus Josh Hart and they were going to take on a bad contract.
Everything.
So it was 125 cents on the dollar instead of 90 cents on the dollar for Anthony Davis. And then last night happens. And if I'm the Pelicans and Dell Demps, I watched the game last night. I'm like, oh, you guys sure that's your stance? You sure you're just going to throw away year 16 of LeBron James? Because while I still believe, and I know we're going to get to the Clippers trade in a moment, thanks to the Clippers trade and some other things, the Lakers will still make the playoffs without Anthony Davis. You cannot believe they are any type of real threat in the playoffs with this team as presently constituted. And so it might make Magic and Rob Pelinka get back together and say, is there a price too high to pay to give us a fighting shot this season?
What aren't they offering the Pelicans that the Pelicans could possibly want?
The Pelicans want all the draft picks they're allowed to trade. They want everything. They want
the ones and the twos.
They want the ones and not 2 ones, 4 ones.
Yes.
To go along with 4 twos, to go along with all 5 young players. So Zoe, Ingram, Kuzma, Zubats, Hart, and take a bad contract. They want literally the maximum available
Not
assets.
only do they want to win on the court, I mean, they know that they're getting beyond his value, but they're also trying to win the press conference. This is an organization that Anthony Davis talked about. He believes that the ownership, because they own the Saints and the Pelicans, that they favor the Saints. And it's a Saints city. And you know, and the fans turn out more for the Saints. And the ownership supports the Saints. So all these things become very, very important because they've lost a player. Now, how do they win from a PR standpoint?
And Danny Ainge is whispering in Dell Demps' ear, wait for me, wait for me. But he's not the only GM whispering in Dell Demps' ear. There's a lot of other GMs, I believe, and people in the league that aren't in big-time markets or are either have bitterness towards LeBron and Clutch Sports or have bitterness towards the power the superstar player, the enormous power the superstar player has acquired, and is saying, don't give in, man. Do not let Anthony Davis dictate exactly where he wants to go and give in to LeBron. So he's got pressure from outside his organization that if he's going to make this trade, he has to get everything from the Lakers.
But just very quickly before we go, if you're the Lakers and you saw what you saw on the court last night, do you just do it?
I'm not giving them all the twos. I mean, there is a price to be paid, but I mean, you have to at some point be like, okay, enough is enough. But I believe Magic Johnson's forced to make this trade.
If I'm the Lakers, I tell them, listen, if you want all the young guys and all our picks, we are not taking on the bad contract. If they're going to do that, then they have to leave themselves the ability to sign a guy this offseason. Yes. So you can, I would almost tell them, take your pick, the young guys and the bad contract, or the young guys and all the draft picks. We can't do all 3, and the Pelicans might just say, okay, we'll see you at 2:58 p.m. on Thursday and see if you still feel that way.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.